today, who for me is someone that always challenges perspective, makes you think a little differently. He's someone that really takes the time to get to know people and understand who they are and where they're coming from. And he really brings that to his world of photography and video. And so if you ever get the chance to meet and work with him, you would be so fortunate. And he just really can pull things out of people that they didn't even know were there. David, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Naomi.
Of course. David and I have been trying to do this for a while, so this is going to be good. No pressure, David, but I really feel like
I am used to being on the other side of the camera, so this is good for me to understand how people feel when the pressure's on.
That's actually a really good
It is
point.
good.
Yeah.
It's just good to understand what people feel in front of the camera.
That. So let's go back to David, when you were little, what were some of the things that you were really passionate about, or what were some of the things that you were interested in or thought you might want to be?
So when I was little, my interests weren't like anything creative at all. They were always, I was dressed up in army gear, climbing in the trees in the backyard, pretending to be a sniper. So I was always interested in adventure type sort of army kind of stuff. And then I did a whole bunch of sports.
So when you said you weren't interested in anything creative, who were some of the people that influenced you?
I was brought up in a family that was super supportive and had great values. And I just took it for granted that that I had a great quality of life.
Yeah.
And that if I wanted to pursue things, I could pursue things. And at that point in my life where I almost want to find and be part of people's lives where they didn't have those opportunities, so they don't have this hope, but it's not a big deal. It's like a teacher. It's not a big deal for a teacher to see potential and say, you know what, you should pursue this sport, or you should pursue photography. I think there's just, you take it for granted.
Did you have creative people around you, or were you around different types of people?
So growing up, there wasn't a lot of push to be creative. After high school, I did a sort of missions program through Youth with a Mission. And we ended up I was living in Hawaii. We went to Tibet, Nepal, and Cambodia. And that's actually when I really picked up a camera. And I started shooting, and everyone basically around me was shooting as well. We all had cameras. And when I sort of got my images back, people were impressed. So that sort of led me then to show that to other people. And I sold it at a few coffee shops. So I think my first sort of creative introduction to people, and then that's when I met Jared, and Jared took me under his wing and taught me all this stuff for free. I would spend time in the lab with him, in his darkroom, in his apartment. And then I applied to CAD.
Amazing. So it sounds like you had some really strong mentors in your life. How important is that, do you think?
I think it was crucial to have people that can see that you're interested and passionate about something, but you don't really know the way. So Jared and Aaron and Abraham, those three guys were crucial in just on their own, taking their time to just for no benefit of their own, just to guide you.
I love that. And I think that's something that I really hope people catch from this, is that it's important to find mentors and people that believe in you and see things in you that you don't always see in yourself. So that's so cool that you had that. So moving forward, you learned a lot from them. And then when did you where did you go from there? How did you take the next step in your career as a photographer?
So I did my 4-year degree program through ACAD, and along the way, I was always assisting and working with local photographers, essentially doing anything I could to learn the craft. I basically lived at chapters and would just read books and do whatever I could do. And then from ACAD, when I graduated, I got a job offer to work as a staff photographer at a local magazine company.
So you worked for a magazine, and then, because being a solopreneur, being an entrepreneur, especially creatively, can be really challenging. How did you deal with some of those challenges that came up, or what was some of the resistance that you had to face?
So I think when you're doing creative things and you have a salary job doing that, it just takes a little bit of the weight off. So I did that for a few years. And then in about 2008, when the economy crashed, I was one of 3 photographers at RepPoint, and I got laid off. That also was the same time that Janet, my wife, was pregnant. So we were in this sort of really challenging space where it was I was expecting a baby and I was no longer had a job. So I essentially just worked as hard as I could and shot on the side. And I worked for a lot of photographers and just made the most out of it.
For sure. Do you think that getting laid off and then having a baby on the way like that would definitely push you? Do you think that was some of the reasons why you were successful, because you had something that was bigger than you?
Totally. I think having like a baby is a huge motivation to just like even get up and work hard. But yeah, like overall, I would say it's actually like super challenging. Like, to be honest, like looking back, it was like super tough.
Yeah. And but you did get through it. What were some of the things that came out of that hard time for you?
I think one of the things that came out of that time actually is when I started to transition from shooting just for myself and I started shooting, weddings, because I really like love people. I love interacting with people. And it was just also like financially like a really like stable thing. Like the income was like good and I just went for it. So me and Janet, we just built this wedding business. And then I fell into sort of this interesting market within the wedding world, which is like South Asian weddings.
Photographers can do a lot of different things. There's a lot of different niches, a lot of different avenues. So for you to choose weddings or the things that you choose, what makes you choose those things?
I think the wedding stuff and like specifically the multicultural weddings was for me like a reference in my life to when I started in photography, when I did the trip to Tibet and Cambodia and Nepal. I just fell in love with just like the world and what was out there and like the different cultures and the different way of living and like the different perspectives people have on life. So I think that this was like a marriage of where my heart truly lies, which is like in the world and like people, like a diverse group of people, but being able to have a family and live locally, but feeling integrated into this community of like Afghan weddings in Calgary and Pakistani weddings and Sikh weddings and Hindu weddings. And it sort of just was the flame that sort of like, in a way, keeps me alive. I feel like I'm still connected to another part of the world.
That's so beautiful. And I like that perspective. I think this whole idea of this summit is about really connecting with who you are in order to have a personal brand. And I think that piece for you of loving the world and exploring the world and loving people is how you're able to create such beautiful images as you have gone on, and like you're working with all these different type of people. What are some of the things that you want people to feel when you're spending time with them?
So along with the weddings, I do commercial work as well. So I have some commercial clients, and then a big part of what I like shooting is just portraits. So I think for the most part, like clients usually leave with a feeling of being connected, like that I'm not just in there just to like with a camera taking pictures, that I'm actually like interested in, if it's a portrait setting, like I'm actually interested in that dialogue with a person. Or if it's a wedding, like I'm legitimately interested in like the family or like the father of the bride. We'll get into conversations or different, interesting topics on like religion, because most of my clients aren't what predominantly North Americans are, which is like Christian, right? They're Hindu and they're Sikh and they're Muslim and they're all these different sects of Muslim. So it's one of those things where I just genuinely feel interested in people.
I love that. And it really shows, like, I've been on the other end of David's camera and I've definitely referred people to David, and people always leave feeling very good and very surprised that even there was a good picture that came out of it. And I really think it comes from that space of really caring about the people that are in front of you. And when
Totally.
I tie that into a personal brand, like that is what it's about. Who are the people that you're serving and how do you want to make them feel?
Yeah, I think like the motivation for me is like I use photography to connect with the world and with people. So I think like my intention coming in, like I see a lot of photographers, even stuff say like online or just in real life, and there's no connection between them and their subject. It's almost just like they're a product and they're just there to photograph them. For me, it's I think I just have this natural ability to like get people pretty quickly. So it's a disarming thing because I can disarm them if they're uncomfortable. You've experienced some of that
Hmm.
where the intention isn't, I'm not trying to trick you because I'm in it for a great photo. I actually do want you to, walk away feeling like there was some side of you that was like captured. I think that's a magical thing.
Yeah, 100%. And it's really cool to tie that back to the very beginning of this conversation when you said, I'm not used to being on this end, you know? And I think that those abilities to unlock things in people and make them feel comfortable, it's truly a gift. So, who are the people for you that you want to serve? Who are the people that you get excited to take photos of? What are some of the characteristics of those types of people?
So it's interesting, like I recently, before COVID, had studio space and I was essentially finding people on Instagram or even sometimes like on the street. And it's something that's just like innate in you. Even today, I dropped my kids off at school and there's people walking by and I just could see pictures. And it was just, oh, there's something about that person that I connect with. It's really hard to pinpoint it and say there's just like one thing, like I only shoot this. It's not that. It's just there's something that I can't even put into words, where when I see someone, I just am connected to it. And then it just makes me want to take a picture.
Sometimes, especially in the world of Instagram and social media, it's really easy to overdo things and try and have so many formulas for everything. And sometimes it really is just trusting yourself and trusting your instincts and trusting how you feel. And I know that you do that. Do you want to speak on that kind of a little bit?
Yeah, like I would say that I do follow like instincts with photography. Like obviously, like in the world of say weddings, you're just you're with a family or a group of people and you're just photographing things and there's really cool moments. So I'm not choosing people then. But when it comes to like commercial portraiture or personal sort of projects, yeah, like I just look at things that maybe I see something in them that I either want to be. Like it's interesting. Sometimes there's just it could be a like just a physical thing. Like I like the way that this guy looks in his style, and I'm drawn to capture that. Or maybe it's just the essence of someone where I feel like there's just something that should be captured here because there's just something about their spirit. And I don't know if it's the photo thing is like also like it's the camera separates me from them. I've tried to figure that one out. Am I just always wanting to look in on people's lives and maybe I don't want to examine sort of my own self? I don't know. I've asked myself those
Wow,
questions.
that's deep, David. And
Well,
it's
I'm
like,
not trying to be deep.
no, but I love that. But I do, I think that that's a really good point. And I think that sometimes in life, you're right. You can be drawn to certain things or you can see certain things because sometimes it's the things that you want within your own life or the things that you're striving for or the things that you think would be good for you. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's how we're created to be. Like we're created to inspire each other and push each other forward. So I don't think that's a negative thing. But it's interesting with the whole camera, like how you said it, like it's pointed at someone else, but should it be pointed at me? And really, we're doing that right now. This is the first time, probably for you in a long time, where the camera's like on you. Not,
Totally. And like part of you like you might be using the camera as a way. I've thought this, maybe you're using a camera in a way to examine other things. Maybe because you don't necessarily want to examine yourself. I do think I spend a lot of time trying to be like mindful and reflect on who I am and ask myself tough questions. I do that a lot. So I don't think that overall I'm just using it as a tool not to get to know myself because that's not really what it's about. But there's a famous photographer in the States and he said that all of his portraits were basically self-portraits of himself. And I thought that was really interesting. He'd have people that might be beautiful or they might be have some physical handicap and he saw something in them that it's almost like we have these identities of ourselves. And so there's multiple identities, right? Yeah, I think that there's just sometimes we see ourselves as being strong or sometimes we see ourselves as being weak. And I like the power in the photography in that way where you can just, I don't know, just express yourself and there's multiple layers to who we are.
yeah. I just think that's so interesting to me. And I never thought about it that way. But a lot of times, photography is the medium that you're using, but a lot of times, things that we create are, yeah, things that we are aspiring for, we're dreaming for, or things that are in us. And I think that it's being able to almost put it out there. This is what I see. This is who I want to be. And you get to create that in a photo.
Yeah, I think that when you're able to just in the photo world, when you're able just to express what you like, how you see the world, I think that's been my interest in as I'm like moving into video is I love the idea of just being able to create a film or a short story that just says, hey world, this is like the expression of how I see things.
Yeah. What's really cool is just that idea of being able to take the things in you and give them to the world. I think that there's always those challenges of what if people don't like it, or what if, it's not received the way I thought? Like, how do you handle those things?
I think for me, I've been doing this for long enough that I feel pretty comfortable with the craft and what I'm doing, and maybe the message I'm trying to communicate, that I don't ever really think, I really just don't care what people think when it comes to that kind of stuff. But then on the same hand, you do get a lot of people, or even for myself, maybe you don't share as much content because you're just maybe thinking about how that's going to be received. So maybe I just do that on like the front end of it, where I won't post like crazy, because I do want it to be thoughtful. I don't want it just to come across like I don't care about what I'm posting. And that's sort of sometimes what I feel like I see a lot, is just people will blast stuff. So I think when it comes to your brand, I think that you do want to consider all the little details, because if you're known for that, like when you post something, and if you're doing something professionally, whatever that brand is, people dissect that, and people will just, so you do want to be conscious of that, but it doesn't hold me back. When I feel like this is what I want to share, I am not worried at all what people think.
I love that. I love that you said that too, because I think it's good to be intentional. It's good to do things with excellence and to do things well. But like you said, don't let that hold you back. Because I do think that sometimes people don't put things out there and they don't go that extra step because they're afraid of maybe people won't receive it, or maybe people won't like it. So I think that in your excellence, still put things out there. Like you said, if you feel it, do it.
And I think that ties into sort of just like your own confidence. Like, I'm doing this for myself.
Yeah.
Like and I think that's a big takeaway. Like, I think for people to just be trying to create a brand or trying to create content, not just to get likes, but to even just be liked. Like, I'm literally I would do this if no one knew about it.
Yes. You need to find those things that whether one person sees it or nobody sees it, you're doing it because it makes you happy.
I think a lot of people want to put like identities and careers and like jobs like on themselves. It's a lot of times people just don't want to let go of an idea they've created for themselves. Like, I'm a photographer, I'm a hairdresser. It's okay for you to do a 180 and go down a different road. And what you're sort of promoting is like helping people find what those things are, because it's not like really just read this book and then you'll find out. Mm-hmm. The whole point is that you need to go through it.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't be told that when you started doing hair that you should really be doing like this online creative, platform. You need to go through it. I think people don't realize that, like, it's okay to go through things and for things to be difficult, because that's like the fire that forges like maybe where you're at. But I think your thing is meeting it and saying, but along the way you need guidance. Mm-hmm. So I think people don't just know how to go from like the start to the finish. Like, you need people to help you, get there. And then there's a big part of this puzzle where you need to go through some stuff by yourself.
Yeah, I 100%. I think that I see it as this picture of even your journey. You started off taking some pictures while you were abroad. And the first thing, you just took them. Yeah. And you were vulnerable to show them to people, and they gave you feedback. No, like, these are really good. Like, I'm impressed. That piece develops confidence in you.
Right.
And the next piece was the people that came alongside of you with school, and they saw things in you, and then you get a mentor. And I think life is like that. You take these little journeys to build that confidence, because people will see those things in you, but you're not always ready to see them for yourself. And then I think when you start to become whole and really like own who you are, like what you're saying, like, you're confident when you go to a shoot, but you maybe wouldn't have felt that way when you first started taking pictures on your trip, right? And so this builds, and all of a sudden you're confident, and it becomes really easy and almost mindless in a way. And that's where it's okay, maybe it's time to take a leap, and maybe it's not changing careers completely, but maybe it's, like you said, maybe it's getting into video, or maybe it's taking a different angle from where you are and saying, I need to be challenged.
Or even you do have a better platform of helping people find their passion within what you do.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that there's so much of this like me culture of like, it's about you, it's about everything that you need. But really what it is about what knowledge, what gifts, what abilities do I have that I can give to other people to help make their life better, to help them get to that next space. And like you said, it could be within your niche of what you're doing. I think that's usually a good place to start.
Totally. In life where you're just wanting, not everyone gets there, but I'm saying, I think a good portion of people get to a point where they realize that they want to serve in some capacity. Like it doesn't have to be an overly romantic idea, but it's, you do want to make a difference or you do want to contribute, as opposed to just being like, okay, check, I did that job, check, I got paid. I think some people have it in them to create almost like greater things, and you're on that path. I think that's a healthy place to be, where you want to contribute more to your like kind of community.
I really hope that people get the chance to work with you. Where can they find you if they want to get some David behind the camera action?
Yeah, you can check out my work on Instagram at David_Dean, and my wedding stuff is at Dean Pictures.
Amazing.
And then there's links to my websites in there.
And he has a beautiful website that maybe a fellow interviewee created for him, which could also possibly be his wife. Super talented. David, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Iomi. You just stick with it, and we love what you're up to. And we just wish the best for you, and the future is super bright for you.
Thank you. I so appreciate that.
And I like your plant in the background.
I think it's starting to die after every interview. I'm like, oh.
It just slowly wilting.
Slowly dying.